Hey, welcome back to the Competitor's Guide, episode 2. So long after episode 1, but hey, we're here and we're here to talk about card draw today. I am your guide to competition. I need to figure out a better intro for that. Hyperface or Dave, whatever you want to call me. It works. I am here to talk about different kinds of card draw, card advantage versus card parity, and then the two kinds of card advantage, which are card selection and card velocity. Now, there are technically more kinds than all of these things, and there are nuances to them, but we're going to go over the bare bones, basic, big hits, top of a thing, so that you guys can understand the differences in these and what works best in different situations in different games. We're going to start off talking a lot of it through a Magic the Gathering focused lens, because that is the thing I am the most familiar with. We're also going to move into Pokemon TCG and get into that space because there are some cool ways that this interacts in Pokemon as well. Those two games are kind of different, and Pokemon tends to have a lot more card draw in the game, and you burn through a lot more of your deck and resources in a game of Pokemon than you do in Magic typically. But that doesn't make these lessons any less important, and they actually, I think, sometimes can do more because the specific type of card advantage you get really matters. So let's start off, let's define our terms a little bit here. So card draw, obviously, is anything outside of your initial draw step that draws you cards. In most games, when your turn starts, you draw a card. Anything beyond that initial card would be considered a card draw effect, whether it is on a creature or a Pokemon or a trainer card or a sorcery, an instant, a static effect from an enchantment, whatever. If it draws you a card, it is card draw. There is card parity, which is when you and your opponent both draw cards from the card effect. Now, as we all know, symmetrical effects are fair, which means they're totally not. If you put card parity in your list, you are almost always setting it up in a way that heavily advantages you and disadvantages your opponent. If you're using card parity and it's not like only helping you, you're not doing it right. So we'll talk about that a little bit. There are several card parity effects that we can talk about. And then there is also card advantage, and like I said, that breaks down into two primary types. We have card selection and card velocity. Card selection is usually being able to look at a bunch of cards, but only selecting a few of those cards to put in your hand. And card velocity is just drawing a bunch of cards. I have two really good bare bones examples that use just a single card draw effect, but can kind of explain the difference between the two, and we can really go from there. So the main example I'm going to use is from Magic the Gathering to kind of explain this. And if you know anything about MTG, people in the MTG community nickname all effects or things that their cards do after either the first card to do it or the card that got played the most that did it first. So I'm going to pull up my screen share here real quick for you guys and my camera. There we go. Transition right here. Bam. There, did it. All right. So this is Merfolk Looter. It has an ability that is tap, draw a card, then discard a card. That now is commonly called looting. Anytime you would draw a card and then discard a card, it is looting. There is a thought experiment in Magic the Gathering that is, when should you loot? And the answer is always. You should always loot in MTG. My screen's not sized right. Let me fix that. There we go. Okay, you should always loot in MTG. All right? Because you're going to draw a card and then get to discard. And that means you will look at your hand, decide which card is best, and then discard the worst card. It could be the new card you drew, and that's okay. You still dug a card deeper into your deck, which allowed you to get closer to the resources you need. So you should always loot. The inverse of that is Rummaging Goblin, which we now call this effect Rummage. Its ability is tap, discard a card, draw a card. So this means you must discard a card from your hand in order to draw a new card. This is a lot harder because sometimes your hand is really good and you don't want to discard any of these cards, and then you're going to draw something you don't actually need or isn't good. You're going to be replacing a good card with a bad card some percentage of the time. Whereas with Merfolk Looter, you are going to replace you're either going to replace a good card with a better card, you're going to replace a bad card with a good card, or you're not going to replace any cards. You're going to draw a bad card and get rid of it. Even if you have 0 cards in your hand, sometimes it is helpful to loot. You cannot rummage with 0 cards in your hand because you must discard a card for the effect to take place. That's how when it's worded like this and has a little colon right there, that's how that works. You have to be able to discard a card before you can draw a card. So looting is card selection. Rummaging is card velocity. What rummaging will do is just churn you through your deck quickly without caring specifically about what cards you're getting a lot of times. Whereas looting will select cards. Now, if you have a discard-based deck, or you have a deck that really wants to put cards in the graveyard, rummaging is just as good as looting in a lot of instances. If you're using like Madness as a discard-based deck, where when you discard a card, you can then cast it for its Madness cost, well, you just rummage that card away. You can also loot that card away. Looting is typically a better effect than rummaging. Rummage is an effect that is almost always seen in red cards, and loot is seen very commonly in blue cards. No surprise, blue gets all the best card draw effects in Magic. Now, the best card draw card ever, I clicked on the wrong thing, there we go, is Ancestral Recall. It is 1 blue, you draw 3 cards, or you can force your opponent to draw 3 cards, but you draw 3 cards. That is straight card velocity. It's drawing 3 cards for the cost of 1 mana. The cost, and it being an instant, is what makes this card so good. But there are other cards that are similar to this that are also card selection. Let's see. Not Careful Study. Where is... Did I so screwed up my order these cards were in. That's okay. We'll get to them. We'll find it. Preordain. There we go. Preordain is card selection at its finest. It is a better version of the card Opt in many ways, but Opt is an instant, where Preordain is a sorcery. So, while they are both 1 blue mana, one can be played at any time, and the other can be played at sorcery speed, and this is often the difference in cost that helps us vary out our card selection and the balancing factor for card selection. Now, Preordain says, scry 2, then draw 2. Those of you not used to Magic the Gathering lingo, scry is you get to look at the top card of your deck for whatever number scry is. So scry 2, we look at the top 2, and you can choose to put them on top or bottom. Scry 2, then draw a card is card selection. You are only getting 1 card, but you are able to look at 2 cards and potentially see 3 cards if you bottom both of those 2. So you're able to go up to 3 cards viewed for 1 card in hand. That is a prime example of card selection versus card velocity. Whereas Recall over here is card velocity. In this instance, it is a significantly more powerful card because it is the same cost, but oftentimes you'll find that card selection cards and card velocity cards are costed differently. Just getting raw card draw is often a higher cost than being able to select through cards and obtain less of those cards. Now, let's see here. We're going to look at something like Ancestral Reminiscence here. This is a 4-cost card, and as a sorcerer, you draw 3 cards, then discard a card. This is functionally card velocity, in that you are drawing 3, and then you are discarding a card. You're not really getting the selection. Like, I know I termed looting selection earlier, but that is in reference to rummaging. When you are pulling off this many cards to your hand, and you are netting a total of 2 cards, that is card velocity. It is a sorcery, it is a 4-cost, this is a lower, like a common, it's not a great card, but this is something you would still see played and still would work in limited to function as card velocity. You also have cards like Archmage's Charm here, which they are modal cards, which means they have multiple modes. And one of the modes is just that you draw 2 cards, or target player draws 2 cards. This is straight card velocity, just adding cards to your hand. Being modal makes it better. Then we have recurring effects that apply this, and this, something like this, which is a triggered effect. So whenever you counter a spell, you can draw a card and discard a card. This also functions a lot more like card selection than it does card velocity. On the single card basis, you are selecting cards that you want, especially when it is repeatable and you can do it over and over again. You're exchanging card for card. That is selection versus velocity. You're not netting cards. You're not getting a lot more. You're just changing out your cards in your hand. So that's why Baral here works a lot more like card selection than velocity. Hopefully I've made this very clear. Boon of the Wishgiver. This card is straight card velocity, right? You draw 4 cards. The fact that it has cycling where you can also draw 1 card for 1 means, again, this card is card velocity. No matter what, you are getting cards. You are exchanging this for another card, or you are drawing 4 cards. You are just getting card velocity. Look at a card like Brainstorm. This is absolutely card selection. Brainstorm is one of the most powerful cards ever printed, and part of that is how it works with other cards. So Brainstorm says, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So you are adding 3 cards and then removing 2 cards. You're netting a card. In reality, since you're using Brainstorm, you're at card parity. You're even, right? Because realistically, you draw 3 cards, you put 2 cards back, and then you have to discard Brainstorm. So you're changing cards. But look, for cards drawn, all right, you're netting 1 card drawn. But you're able to take cards that are not good from your hand and put them on top of your deck. And you're like, well, I'm just going to draw those later. But when you use any kind of shuffle effect, like a fetch land or any kind of ability or other card, you can then get rid of those cards you don't need. So this is prime card selection versus card velocity. Yes, you draw 3 cards, but you're not keeping all 3 of those cards. If this was just Ancestral Recall and you drew 3 cards, that is straight card velocity. So we're breaking down the differences here. Sometimes you need card velocity. Sometimes you just need cards. You just need as many cards as you can get in your hand. And sometimes you need selection. You need specific cards. Careful Study is a great example of kind of both of these effects at the same time. Careful Study says draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. So you are gaining cards, but then you are discarding 2 cards. So you're selecting the 2 cards you want from this group. But the more cards you draw with this style of effect, the more it feels like card velocity versus selection. It is still card selection. At its core, you are choosing which cards to keep, the cards that benefit you the best. But you are also just gaining cards. Now let's look at Amass Components. Here's another one I wanted to check out, which you draw 3 cards and you put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Now there's a big difference between discarding a card and putting it on the bottom. This kind of comes down to our card selection and how we work it. When you put something on the bottom, you know where it is, which is great. But if any kind of effect shuffles your library, then it's anywhere. It could be anywhere. You could draw it again. And if you don't want to draw it again, that's not helpful. Putting stuff in your graveyard means that you're not seeing that card again. It is a better form of card selection in that you are getting rid of it. Or sometimes, if you're playing a Reanimator style deck or a deck that utilizes discard or cards from the graveyard, putting them in the graveyard is like having a second hand. So it then also merges that nice bit of card velocity and card selection. You are able to choose cards, but then you're also able to put them away in a second spot. So it's almost like adding more cards to what you're doing. Cephalid Broker is the upgrade of looting, where you draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. This is like the best looter, right? So I just wanted to have it shown here to show that this effect scales really well. Even if it was draw 5, discard 5, it scales amazingly. Rummaging does not scale amazingly. Discard 2, draw 2 is tough. And the higher that number goes up, the harder it is to make it work, because you have to have those cards in your hand to make it happen. Cephalid Broker, if you just want to put cards in your graveyard, you can activate this with no cards in your hand, and you just churn through the top of your deck. If you have 1 card and you activate this, you're going to get the best card out of the 3 cards you see. So it really is excellent selection. It molds through your deck, but it also churns through it quicker with 2 cards, so it gives you some card velocity. If you're having to rummage 2, that's so much harder than looting 2. Especially because you do need the cards to discard. It's part of the cost. We look at something like Chart a Course, where you draw 2 cards and then discard a card unless you attacked. This allows you to decide if you want to put cards in the graveyard or not. Is this card straight card velocity, where I can just draw 2 cards, or do I need to select cards and put them in the graveyard? Or do I just need raw cards, and just drawing more than I'm discarding is helpful? One of the best examples of card velocity period are X draw spells. Something like Damnable Pact, where you draw X cards and lose X life. You are just getting cards. You're trading life for cards. As many cards as you can possibly get. This is raw card velocity at its finest. However much you're willing to pay, let's go for it. I already did modal cards, but Is It Charm is another one where you have a double loot staple to it, which is oftentimes just better than a static draw 2, depending on what you're doing. But it allows you to, again, select the best cards you want. Merchant of the Veil here has a nice little card ability right here that is discard a card, draw a card for a payment cost, though. You see, you're still having to rummage, but instead of tapping for it, you're paying. You can also use haggle, which is discard a card, draw a card. At instant speed, this kind of rummage effect is priced differently than a loot oftentimes, but it is just card velocity, and they balance these things by the way they price them. If this were draw a card, discard a card in Modern Magic, they would have priced it at 4 probably. And if they had done this haggle, it wouldn't have been an instant, it would have been a sorcery if it was looting, most likely. Although sometimes blue is just really skewed. We talked about opt earlier. Right here we have precognitive perception, which is just draw 3 cards. It's just velocity, you're just getting cards. But if you cast it with an additional cost, you can scry 3 and draw 3. That is ultimate card selection. You're now seeing 6 cards and taking 3. That is way better card selection. That's why I wanted to bring this one up. We already talked about Preordain. Serum Visions. This is a weird one. This is card selection in the strangest way. Serum Visions, you draw a card, then you scry 2. Instead of Preordain, which is the opposite, which is a significantly better card, it allows you to look at your cards and then draw. This card functions more like a rummage than it does a loot. Drawing and then looking allows you to set up your next turn, and it allows you to see more cards, and it allows you to set up for future turns or future draw cards, but it doesn't have any effect on this card. So while it is card selection, it is not the same quality of card selection. So you need to know what you're looking for, card selection versus card velocity here. Behold the Multiverse, there are several cards like this. They are an excellent example of solid card selection. They're almost always priced at 4 mana. You scry 2, then draw 2. You're looking at 4 total cards most likely, or anywhere between 2 and 4 cards, depending on if you want to keep the 2. It is a great balance of cost. We saw earlier there was a 4 cost that was draw 3. This is better than that. You get to see more cards. You get better selection. Scry 2, draw 2 is better than flat draw 3. It's not better than flat draw 4, but it is better than flat draw 3 for the same cost. I have a lot of this. Faithless Looting is the best looting card ever. You draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards, and it has flashback. It is Careful Study that we saw earlier, but you get to play it twice. It is the best, one of the best cards ever printed. I love it. Now, the ultimate cards of card selection. Let's talk about tutors. Just like I said, in Magic, we tend to name everything, whatever the first card was. Well, Demonic Tutor is this card. If you are searching your deck or your library for one card and putting it in your hand, you are tutoring. Demonic Tutor is the tutor. It's what you do. You just search and grab it. This is card selection at its finest. I have however many cards in my deck. I get to find the exact one card I want. Trading 1 for 1 card, using the Demonic Tutor to get a new card, but it is ultimate selection. Wheel of Fortune is in many ways ultimate velocity. So this is also a symmetrical effect. So each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. You want to set up a place where this behooves you, right? You don't want to just give your opponent 7 fresh cards most of the time. You want some kind of effect that either punishes them for drawing cards or doesn't allow them to draw extra cards. Or you need to be able to just use this in a way that is going to draw you enough cards that you can just win the game on the spot. Giving your opponent 7 free cards is crazy. If this card just said you discard your hand and draw 7 cards, then obviously it'd be even more busted. But this is the ultimate card velocity. You're getting as many cards in your hand as you realistically can. Blue Sun Zenith, also one of the OG best card velocity cards. I say OG, but this is from when I started playing in original Mirrodin block. You draw X cards, and then you shuffle it back in your library. So you're just drawing cards for mana. However much mana you can spend, that's how many cards you can draw. You are just trying to put as many cards in your hand. Maximum velocity here. Gamble is a funny version of card selection, because it is a tutor where you search your library for a card, but then you have to discard a card at random from your hand. Now that sounds kind of bad, because what if you discard the card you wanted? The best way to use Gamble is in a deck that wants to put things in the graveyard, and you gamble with no other cards in your hand. So the card is just going. It's free Entomb. But sometimes you also just need to gamble for the right card. Speaking of Entomb, this is a different form of card selection. You are searching your library for a card and putting it in your graveyard. So Entomb is putting a big thing that you want to reanimate in your graveyard, or a card that needs to be in your graveyard for some effect in your graveyard. It is a tutor functionally. It just puts it in your second hand, which is your graveyard. So it functions a little differently than your traditional card selection. Wow, we're almost done with Magic and on to Pokemon. Oh yeah, Merfolk Looter and Rummaging Goblin. Let's get through that. Now let's talk how Pokemon works. Pokemon is very different. You have you don't have mana in a traditional sense. You can play as many item cards on your turn as you want, and then you can also play one supporter card per turn. And then different Pokemon have abilities that can often be used once per turn. So we're going to start with one of the most iconic card velocity cards of all time, which is Professor's Research. You discard your hand and you draw 7 cards. It is card velocity. I just talked about Wheel of Fortune. This is that on crack, but it works different because it's in Pokemon. Now, Iono is a great example of a symmetrical card that works as both card velocity, card selection, and disruption. But you have to be really cautious where you use an effect like this. Iono states that each player shuffles their hand, puts it on the bottom of their deck, and then they draw cards equal to the number of prize cards. So it's a great catch-up card. If your opponent has taken more prize cards and they only have 1 or 2 left, but you still have 5 or 6, you're going to draw more cards than them. So you're going to be able to take their big hand, put it on the bottom. But if you use this card at the beginning of the game, when you both have 6 prize cards, you're just trading 6 for 6. So you want to make sure that when you use this card, especially if you use it early for some reason, that your opponent's hand is either massive or good. You know they just tutored up a card that's really good. You know they got something they needed in their hand. You don't want to Iono when they've got nothing, and then you give them fresh cards. But it's a great catch-up disruption card, but it functions as card selection. I said that earlier. It functions as card selection because you know the cards you're putting on the bottom. If I put 8 cards on the bottom of my deck to draw 6 new cards, I know those 8 cards are down there, and as long as I don't trigger a shuffle effect, I know I'm not going to draw any of them. So it is a form of card selection in that I am changing up what is possible to be drawn. I am affecting my own mental numbers of the probability of me drawing the card I need. Now let's talk about Lily's Determination. We're going to talk about this versus Professor's Research, because this is a newer card that's come out, and people are saying it's the best draw card ever, and it is in a way, but it's not the same kind of raw card velocity that Research is. It doesn't actually have the selectiveness that Research does. Now, this is where I'm getting at. Professor's Research, you're discarding your hand. That can be a negative. You might want to keep those cards. You don't always want to discard stuff, but sometimes putting cards you're not using in your discard pile just means you're not drawing them later. So it is selection in that instance. It is raw card velocity, sure, but it is selection that you know there are cards you will not be drawing. Lily's Determination shuffles your hand into your deck, and then if you still have 6 prize cards, you draw 8. If not, you draw 6. But what this does is, if you have a 6-card hand and you draw 6 cards, it's unlikely, but you could draw the exact same 6 cards. So yes, it is card velocity, but it is exchanging those cards into your deck back into your hand. It is not pure card velocity, and it is not selective in that you are putting the things that were already in your hand back into the pool of drawable cards. So where I said Research is just card velocity, this is true absolute velocity, but it has 0 selectiveness. It can, since it is also a shuffle effect, you shuffle before, mix cards that you have previously put to the bottom in some way. So it can really mess things up or be beneficial if you need to get to those cards. Just know there is a huge difference in time to play things like Research and Lily's Determination, and sometimes it's good to have both of these effects in your deck at the same time, because sometimes you really don't want to have to discard your hand. You want those cards available later. But other times you really don't want to draw what's in your hand ever again, so you need the Research. Now we're going to go to 2 similar things of selection versus velocity, where we're going to talk about Professor Sada's Vitality and Explorer's Guidance at the same time. So Sada's Vitality, you get 2 ancient Pokemon, you attach energies from your discard pile to them, but then you draw 3 cards, okay? You have to attach at least 1 energy to draw 3 cards. That's not important. The important part here is one-time turn effect, you are drawing 3 cards. That is card velocity. Then you have Explorer's Guidance, where you're looking at the top 6 and you're putting 2 in your hands, and then the other ones get discarded. This is raw selection. You are able to look at 6 cards and take 2. You are getting less cards overall, but you have a more choice about what cards you're getting. So this is the 2 cards that are played great together, especially because of this effect of getting stuff out of your discard and attaching them. So you can Explorer's Guidance, put things in your discard, and then Sada those things back onto the field. But this is a wonderful example of selection versus velocity here, and needing to know when you play each of these, because these are one-time per turn effects. You need to know, do I just need the raw cards from Sada, or do I need specific cards so I need to dig deeper with Guidance? Drayton here is a great example of card selection, but a card that doesn't get played very often, and we're going to talk about why. So you look at the top 7 cards, you get to reveal a Pokemon and a trainer card and put them in your hand, then shuffle the rest back in. You're digging 7 cards deep for 2 cards, but it's 2 specific types of card. It's not any 2 cards. If this was any 2 cards, it would be so much better. We saw in Explorer's Guidance, you look at 6 and get 2. That's great. You will actually use that. It's not the best card ever printed in Pokemon, but man, is it better than Drayton, which says you need to find a Pokemon and you need to find a trainer. If you only hit Pokemon cards or you only hit trainer cards, you get nothing with Drayton. Yeah, you're getting to dig, but using your one-time effect to dig and potentially get either 0 or 1 hit instead of 2 is rough. And if what you need is 2 Pokemon cards or 2 trainer cards, Drayton can't get that for you. So while it is excellent selection and digs through your deck, it is specific selection. So that's a thing when looking at card selection. You need as broad a brush as you can paint for this selection, finding what you need in the broadest sense possible. Now, another great example of velocity versus selection is we're going to look at Tatsugiri and Mega Kangaskhan here. Oops, they're supposed to be next to each other. These are cards that both have abilities that activate once per turn and only when they are in the active spot. Mega Kangaskhan just says you draw 2 cards. 2 cards is great. Raw card draw. That's velocity. Give it to me, baby. And then Tatsugiri is you look at the top 6 and you find a supporter card and you put it in your hand. That is ultimate selection. It's narrow selection, but not so narrow because it is only 1 card. Whiffing on Tatsugiri still feels bad. Drawing 2 cards that are useless also feels bad, but you have to decide what works best for you in the moment you need. Now, Mega Kangaskhan is just on its face a better card. It's big, it's beefy, it's got good attacks, but Tatsugiri is a very playable card and is used a lot, and as long as you have ways you can flip it from the active to your bench every turn so that you can get multiple uses out of it, this card is amazing, and it's a little curly boy and he's great. I love Tatsugiri. But this is one of those moments where you need to decide for your deck what you need most. And a lot of times, most decks will just include 1 single copy of Tatsugiri to try and find them what they need or dig through their deck if they can ping pong around. It's great for that. And there are some decks that only include 1 Mega Kangaskhan for the same reason. Or some decks that will have multiple Kangaskhan's as attackers or kind of just damage soaks. It just depends on what they need. But the main reason this card is included is that run errand ability. If it didn't have this card velocity, no one would play this card, realistically. Last example in Pokemon of selection versus velocity here is we're going to look at Dracloak, where once per turn you can look at the top 2 cards, put 1 in your hand, put 1 on the bottom. See 2 cards, take the best one. That is fantastic version of selection, right? That is what we're looking for. We're looking to dig. The more Dracloaks we have, the more we can use this. We want our bench full of Dracloaks so we can just churn through the top of our deck, see up to 8 cards per turn, and keep the 4 that are the best, right? Golden Go here is raw card velocity, and that coin bonus allows you to draw 1 card per turn. It's great. If it's in the active spot, you get to draw 2 cards, though, which is better than Dracloak, but this is also a better, like a bigger, buffier card, right? And it's an EX, so it gives up 2 prize cards when it's KO'd instead of 1. But if you have 4 Golden Goes on your bench, you're drawing 4 cards, just like you were drawing with Dracloak. But Dracloak, you're seeing 8 cards and drawing 4, the best 4 you can get. Whereas Golden Go is just getting 4 cards. It's great. It allows you to really recover from disruption and pull cards in your hand, but it's not the same level of selectedness as Dracloak. Now, Golden Go's a better attacker, and then having card velocity stapled onto one of your best attackers is just really good. But you need to know that if what you're trying to do is see more cards and draw more cards, Dracloak is a better card. It just is. Plus, it evolves into Dragapult, which is a fantastic attacker. So, now that we've kind of talked about that, let's let's pull it back here. I just was messing with my settings. There we go. Fixed it. All right. Let's pull it back here and let's run for this conclusion. So, hopefully you guys understand. Card advantage is anytime you draw cards and your opponent doesn't, right? Card parity or symmetrical card draw is anytime both of you draw cards. Symmetrical card draw can be good, especially if what you're doing is making your opponent reshuffle or change their cards or get rid of cards they wanted or potentially draw out and lose a game. But most of the time you don't want your opponents to draw cards. You want to find a way to break the symmetry if there are symmetrical card draw effects. Pretty simple. Card advantage, so you just want to draw cards. you need to decide, do I just want raw cards, which is card velocity, as many cards as I can possibly fit in my hand, or do I want card selection, which is choosing through the cards that I'm getting to try and sculpt a better hand. I may be able to get less cards in my hand, but typically I'm going to see more cards, right? And seeing more cards before you make your decision is often better. These different styles of card advantage have different places in the game. Some strategies just need as many cards in their hand as possible. Golden Go that we looked at before is a great example of this. Its attack, you need to discard energies in order to use it, so you just need cards in your hand. You just need energies to discard, right? But there are other things where you need specific cards, specific items, or specific Pokemon or what have you to make your strategy work, and Dracloak works a lot better because you're able to selectively go through your deck, look at more cards, but take either the same amount or less. So what are you using these for is the kicker you need to be thinking about. But understand that there are these two different kinds of card advantage on their face, and figure out what you need to work best. I hope this guide has been helpful to you guys. And I really appreciate you coming along with me. Let me know in the comments what your personal favorite card draw is and what you like. Faithless Looting is like one of my favorite Magic cards ever printed, so obviously I'm on record for that. And then I've been playing a lot of the Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Absol box in Pokemon, so Mega Kangaskhan's up there for me right now in Pokemon cards. And as much as Lily's Determination is awesome, I just think Professor's Research is one of the best cards that they ever made a long time ago, and it's still good. So, it's hard to pick those things. But let me know what you think and what helps you the best, and what kind of card draw you like to run in your deck. And what you want to see next coming out of here. Thanks so much for coming on the guide, and hope this helps.